Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being with us today. My name is Ashley Little, and I'm the training coordinator for Our Daily Bread CACFP. And I am excited to go through our annual training, Nourish and Flourish Healthy Futures with the CACFP. Throughout this session, we'll be walking through important CACFP information, reminders, and requirements to help support your program and maximize your reimbursement. Our goal today is to make sure that you feel confident in what's expected of you on the food program and aware of the resources available to support you. So we'll start by reviewing our sponsorship benefits. So these are resources and supports available to you when you participate in the CACFP through Our Daily Bread. When you choose to be sponsored by Our Daily Bread, you're not just submitting claims, you're gaining access to tools, guidance, and a full support system who is behind you every single step of the way. Some of those benefits include our educator portal, seasonal menus, Taking Root Together, the Link magazine, early educator podcast, and social media engagement. So we'll do kind of a deep dive into each of these real quick. So the educator portal is a tool designed to help you stay connected to Our Daily Bread. And it helps manage your CACFP responsibilities and paperwork kind of all in one place. So through the portal, you can complete, upload, and store your CACFP documents without the stress of faxing paperwork, tracking down email addresses, or trying to remember who requested what. The portal also gives you access to important resources like child nutrition labels, creditable recipes, and CACFP calculators for things like whole grain ounce equivalents and sugar limits. The Educator Portal was created to simplify the CACFP and make your life easier. So next, we'll take a look at what our menus look like. So this is just a little sample from our seasonal menu. You can see that on the left-hand side, we have serving sizes listed. So you'll see exactly what you need to serve and how much of that for each meal or snack. And then you'll see every single thing listed on our menu has a name. And anything where the recipe name is in red, that means it's a homemade recipe. So that requires a recipe. But if you click on it, if you're using it as a digital menu and you click on it, it takes you directly to the recipe for that meal. And I'll tell you exactly how to prepare it, what you need to prepare it, and how it contributes to the meal pattern. And then you'll also see things like WG, WW, and CN. Those signify whole grain, whole wheat, or combination foods. And then we have Taking Root Together. Taking Root Together is a garden initiative program that we have here at Our Daily Bread, where we get to help sites have gardens, whether that's container gardens or raised bed gardens. We have the privilege to be able to help with that sometimes. And what this does is it really encourages educators and children both to try new things. We all know that educators are used to just fixing what they're used to having. And children are more apt to try new things whenever they have a hand in the process. So planting these things and seeing them grow and helping pick them really promote that healthy eating for those fresh fruits and vegetables. We also have Grow It, Try It, Like It kits, and these are nutrition curriculum for preschoolers, and it is really, really neat to look at, and we just love giving these away. And then we have our Taking Root webinars. These webinars are based around preparing fresh fruits and vegetables and gardening as it pertains to fresh fruits and vegetables. We'll also have others throughout the year that maybe pertain to using that specifically in the CACFP and trying the new things. And we're really excited to be able to offer those to you guys. And then we have our Link magazine. The Link magazine is a magazine that is full of tips about the CACFP, about policy updates, reminders, and just any additional fun events that may be going on. We also are fortunate enough to have partners who write articles for us in this. So this is meant for all educators, not just educators on the CACFP. There is something for everyone in the ECE field in this magazine. And we would really love it if you check it out. It's a digital magazine, so you can just click or scan that QR code and it'll take you right to our latest issue. And then we have our Early Educator podcast. This podcast focuses on navigating the joys and challenges of running a successful childcare program, and it's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We have a lot of really great episodes on this. Some of them are about dealing with children who have trauma or the finances of running a childcare center. We all know, especially those who've been in the field for a while, there is hills and valleys in that. And so this is a way to connect and share things that can be impactful and things you can take back to your community and continue to keep making that impact. And then we have our social media platforms. So we are on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. We love using these platforms as a way to share giveaways, talk about fun events coming up, reminders, updates, and just any other helpful information throughout the year. And we would also love if you guys engage with us on this. If you serve a really cool meal, tag Our Daily Bread CACFP in that. We would love to be able to see that and be able to highlight you as well. And then, so we'll now jump into the training topics of the day. So we're going to be covering what I like to call the CACFP A to Z. So it's all about reimbursement, claims, record keeping, civil rights, monitoring reviews, receipts, enrollment forms, milk, meal patterns, grains and sugars. All of those things we'll be covering today because they play such an important and vital role in CACFP compliance, and most of these things have a hand in your reimbursement. So we will start with our fiscal rates for the 2026, our reimbursement rates for the fiscal year 2026. For centers, reimbursement is based on free, reduced, and paid categories, and it varies by meal type, including breakfast, lunch, or supper, and snack. And then for homes, reimbursement is based on a tier 1 and tier 2 rate and also varies by meal type. These rates are paid per child, per meal or snack, which is why accurate records and complete documentation are so important throughout the month. So now we're going to talk about claim submission. So educators are encouraged to submit their claim by the first of each month to ensure maximum reimbursement. If you have your data input, so your menus and your attendance from your last meal on the last day of the month, you can actually submit as soon as that's done. So if snack is your last meal or snack of the day and it's over at 2:30 and you get all your stuff put in by 3, you could submit it at 3 o'clock on the 30th or 31st, whichever month that seems to fall in. And claims must be submitted no later than noon on the first Wednesday of each month. If the first Wednesday falls on the first or second day of the month, claims will be due the following Wednesday at noon. We always encourage you to submit as soon as possible. That allows your case manager have time to review the claim and submit back to you if there are corrections. So anything that could maximize your reimbursement, we can submit back to you. And then that allows you a little more time to be able to submit those corrections back before we have to submit to state. And now we'll talk about accurate meal counting. So we'll start with centers. Centers attendance has to be recorded at the point of service, whether that's using AMC sheets or Kid Care. And point of service just means you're marking which children are present at the time the meal is being served. And then for homes, attendance must be recorded daily using AMC sheets or Kid Care. So homes can wait until the end of the day to input that data or log that data on their papers. Just some tips. If you're able to, delegate that attendance tracking to your cook or a lead or assistant teacher, and input that attendance into KidCare daily or weekly to avoid errors or missed meals. It's so easy to accidentally miss maybe putting a snack attendance in, or accidentally miss putting a snack meal in, and that can show up on your claim as just missed money. And we want to make sure, again, we're maximizing that reimbursement. So when you're putting that attendance into KidCare daily or weekly, it just gives you more time to double check that and make sure you're not trying to input so much data or so much information in at one time at the end of the month. And we just want to make sure that, again, you're getting the correct reimbursement, and it helps whenever you have field monitoring reviews as well, because they're going to be checking your attendance and meal counts. So now let's dive into record keeping, which is really essential to maintaining compliance and ensuring just smooth operations within our programs. So let's start by focusing on the types of records you need to have readily available. This includes enrollment forms, infant addendums, medical or parent statements, attendance and meal counts, and then for centers, you also need to have your receipts. A key thing to remember is documents must be kept on file for 3 years plus the current fiscal year. So if we're going to use today's date, we'll just say June 2026. That is in the fiscal year 2026. So we're going to need all the documents from October 2022 all the way up to what we have now in order to be compliant with that. And we always recommend that you keep copies of these on site. We know that you guys send these to us and we log them digitally, and we're always going to have your back if you ever need those, but it just gives a backup plan to be able to have those on site as well. And now we'll talk about civil rights in the child and adult care food program. So the purpose here really is simple but significant: ensuring equal access and treatment for everyone involved, regardless of race, color, national origin, sex, age, or disability. This is fundamental to the integrity and the fairness of the CACFP. So in practice, this means offering the same meal choice to every child, addressing any language barriers by providing translated materials. And we offer a lot of translated materials. So if you ever need those, please just reach out to your field representative or case manager, and they would be more than happy to either send that to you or get with our team and see if we can create it if we don't have it. And we just want to make sure that we're respecting those diverse dietary needs. There's just no room for discrimination based on income, background, or ability. So key reminders are civil rights is a mandatory annual requirement for all CACFP staff, and it is essential to keep records of this training completion. And just remember, civil rights should also be given to all new staff who are onboarding into your program. And now we'll talk about monitoring reviews. So we'll start with center postings. So the things that are required at your centers are going to be your weekly menus, your infant menus, limited English poster, WICS poster, Justice for All poster, your license, and if applicable, validation letter and food permit. And then for your homes, we'll look at your weekly menu, infant menus, license, and again, if applicable, your validation letter. So during each monitoring visit, your field rep will review KidCare records or paper AMCs for the last 5 consecutive days of meal service. These attendance and meal count numbers must match what you claim on your monthly claim. So this process ensures that your claim, again, reflects that true and accurate meal service. So if there are meals that exceed attendance records or that 5-day count, they will be disallowed. So accurate AMC records, they protect your site from disallowances and really ensure that you're getting that maximum reimbursement. We always encourage you to double check that attendance and meal count. Keep your AMCs up to date and easy to access for your field rep, and review your data in KidCare before you submit your claim. See if there's any red flags of missing attendance or missing menus. So just some tips for having a successful review is make sure you're only serving meals during your approved time. If you need to change your meal time, please get with your case manager or field rep and they will be more than happy to assist you with that. Make sure your attendance and meal counts are accurate and readily available. Make sure the menu is posted, dated, and reflects the meal being served. And make sure the meals served are creditable and match your menu. Make sure that all of your postings are visible and that any allergies are documented with the parent or doctor's note and that you're within your licensed capacity. They'll also look for food safety things like refrigerator temp. It needs to be between 32 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Freezer temps need to be 0 degrees or below. And just make sure that your food is properly labeled, dated, and stored safely. For centers, we also are going to be checking those receipts, so make sure they're clear, dated, organized, and readily available. Make sure those time distribution sheets are current, signed, and on site. They'll be reviewing your milk and your total expenses to make sure that everything that you're receiving from the CACFP is getting put right back into the CACFP. And then for homes, just make sure you're serving more than just your own or residential children. We would love to see you guys conduct your own little mock reviews monthly to kind of help prepare you. So there are never any surprises. You're always prepared for exactly what they're going to be looking for and how you can prevent possible things happening, and you can just stay on top of it. And now we'll talk a little bit more about specifically receipts. So we always want to make sure that these are on file at your site or accessible at your site and available during reviews. Remember that they must be clear and readable. Handwritten totals or missing details could lead to disallowances, which we definitely want to avoid. And organizing receipts by the month and separating them from personal purchases or non-CACFP purchases is best practice. Uh, but if you do just so happen to have both, because we know it happens, you may be having a bubble activity and out on a run to buy some bubbles and bubble wands, and someone from the center calls and says, hey, we're out of pears. Can you grab some pears? This stuff is going to happen. We understand that. So if you have something like that, just use that receipt and highlight the CACFP items. That way it stands out and it's easier for you and easier for the field rep. And then just make sure that on that receipt, we can see the date of purchase, the vendor name, method of payment, subtotal, and we'll see the list of items purchased. So things like food items, milk, and all other creditable meal components, and then supplies even like plates, cups, and paper towels. And now we'll talk about enrollment forms for homes. So the things we're looking for a complete enrollment form is relation to provider, related to the provider, child's full name, date of birth, the days and meals the child will attend and be served, special diet or allergy information, if applicable, and that parent signature and date and parent name and contact information. Just know that the signature and date, that date is what activates the child and allows them to be claimed. So let's explore what happens when an enrollment form is missing or out of date. So we're going to look at Josh's situation. He didn't have an enrollment form submitted, yet he was claimed for the entire month. Due to this oversight, every meal claimed for Josh will be disallowed. So if we take a look at Tier 1 reimbursement rates, so we can see the maximum impact this could have, if Josh was served breakfast, lunch, and snack each day for those 20 days, the total loss of reimbursement would be $117. And you may have more than one child who is missing an enrollment form. So those numbers can stack and it adds up and it makes a real impact on your reimbursement. And then enrollment forms for centers, we're looking for the child name, date of birth, again, the days of attendance, what meals are they going to be there for, their household members, their income or SNAP or KTAP information, parent guardian information, and signature and date. Again, this is the date that the child becomes active for claiming. So let's see the impact of what happens when we don't have a complete enrollment form for a center's child. So we're going to use Jane in this case, and we're going to say, again, Jane was claimed for meals throughout the entire month, but since her form was missing, all of those meals were disallowed. And we're going to use the free reimbursement rates for maximum impact. And we see that if Jane was claimed for all 20 meals, that is a loss of $166.40. And again, especially in a center, if you're a bigger center and you have 200 children, it's no thing to have maybe 10 children having a missing or expired enrollment form. And these numbers stack. So again, that adds up so quick and really affects your reimbursement. And now we'll talk more about the income eligibility inside and why having that completely filled out and accurate is so crucial into your reimbursement and how it plays a part in that. So when a form is incomplete, such as missing the last 4 digits of the Social Security number, the child is automatically classified as paid incomplete. This means the child cannot be deemed correctly despite maybe meeting income criteria for free. And the form has to be sent back for correction. So we're going to consider Jane's situation where if we based it off of her income, she would be free. But because the last 4 of the social are missing, she now has to be deemed paid incomplete. So if we compare that free rate versus that paid rate for a 20-day claim period, for free, you would receive $166. For paid, you're only receiving $19. So you're missing out on $147. And again, if you have a center of 200 and you have 20 children who are paid incomplete because of a small missing part on that income eligibility, those numbers stack and really add up and they impact your reimbursement. So infant addendums. So every single infant, 6 weeks through 11 months, needs to have an infant addendum form on file. And we need to make sure we're offering and documenting all required meal components appropriate to the infant's development. And sites should always have backup formula in case an infant runs out. Parents need to fill this form out, and we always recommend they choose what we call the middle option. But it states that the parent will provide the breast milk and iron fortified infant formula, and then the center will provide additional food once that infant is developmentally ready. This covers that infant from 6 weeks through 11 months. So there never has to be any updates because we know that the parent will cover the breast milk and iron fortified formula. And then once they're ready for solids, then the educator will start providing those foods. And just make sure that once they are developmentally ready, the center and site has to start providing food. And make sure that the form is signed and dated and that we're following what's on the form and everything is always up to date. Enrollment forms for adult daycares. So for them, we're looking for that adult name, date of birth, their income, or Medicaid, Social Security, SNAP information, and signature and date. And just like with the children, this is the date that the adult becomes active for claiming. So now we'll take a look at infant parent provided components. So for anyone in the CACFP, parents can provide 1 component per meal or snack. And what does that look like for infants? So for our 0 to 5 month olds, their only requirement is breast milk or iron fortified infant formula. So if a parent brings in either that breast milk or formula, then the educator does not have to provide anything else. All the components are met. There's nothing extra needed. However, once they become developmentally ready, or 6 to 11 months, if a parent brings in that breast milk or iron fortified formula, then the educator has to provide all those other solid food components. If the parent brings in a solid food component, whether that's pureed meat or fruit or vegetable, then the educator has to provide the iron fortified infant formula plus any other solid food components. Now let's take a look at the infant meal pattern. So again, for our 0 to 5 month olds, for both breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack, they're just going to be receiving their breast milk or iron fortified infant formula. For our 6 to 11 month olds, or for when they're developmentally ready, they'll start receiving breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They'll have breast milk or iron fortified infant formula, plus a meat or meat alternate or infant cereal, and then a vegetable or fruit. And then for snack, they'll receive breast milk or iron fortified infant formula, a grain, and a vegetable or fruit. So just some key reminders about infants. Infants are fed on demand. This means we listen to their cues and respond to their needs, not the rigid schedules. And it's perfectly okay to serve less than the required serving size and offer more later based on their appetite at that time. And parents have the option to supply either breast milk or iron fortified infant formula, and breastfeeding on site is credible, which is a wonderful way to support breastfeeding families. Each infant should have their own individualized menu to accommodate their unique needs and developmental stage. And keep in mind, again, parents can provide one component per meal, which is a great way to involve them in their child's nutrition, especially since this is a big transition. Their babies are now transitioning to different food. And so allowing them that can sometimes help ease their mind a little bit and encourage them if they are actually ready to start trying those new things. Remember that infants should never be served juice, and that solid food should only be introduced once the infant is developmentally ready. And this can vary from child to child, so it's really important to watch for those readiness cues. And now we'll take a look at the 1 to 12-year-old and adults. So we'll start with breakfast. For breakfast, we have fluid milk, and then you can choose between 100% juice or fruit or vegetable, and then a grain or meat alternate. Just remember that a meat or meat alternate can only replace the grain up to 3 times a week for breakfast. And then for lunch or dinner, we have fluid milk, a meat or meat alternate, a vegetable, a fruit, or a second vegetable, and grain. So you can absolutely serve a fruit or vegetable, or a vegetable and a second vegetable. You cannot serve mixed vegetables and call that 2 different vegetables. You have to serve 2 separate vegetables. So that may be mashed potatoes and green beans, or corn and squash, and it has to be 2 separate vegetables. So make sure that if we are serving 2 vegetables, it is actually 2 separate vegetables. And then we have snack, where you choose 2 different components. So you can mix and match this any way you would like, whether that's a grain and a vegetable, a meat and a fruit, or a milk and a grain. You can mix and match these any way. We just want to make sure that you're serving 2 different. You can't serve 2 grains or 2 vegetables. This one you have to choose 2 different components. And then just some key points when thinking about serving those 1 to 12-year-olds and adults. Just remember that at least 1 grain a day must be whole grain. And then juice is limited to once per day. There are sugar limits in our yogurt and cereal. Grain-based desserts are not creditable. You're more than welcome to serve these as extra on top of the meals, but any grain-based dessert cannot count as part of a component in a claimable meal. And then just keep in mind that, again, that meat or meat alternate can replace the grain at breakfast up to 3 times per week. And then specifics for our 1 to 12-year-olds. Again, parents can provide 1 component per meal or snack. 1-year-olds receive whole milk, and 2 to 12-year-olds receive whole milk, reduced fat milk, low fat milk, or fat-free milk. And then for our adults, yogurt can be served in place of milk once per day, and milk is optional at dinner. So as we're talking about milk, we all know that there has been an update in the USDA milk servings. And so we're going to take a minute to go over that a little bit. And so right now, what we're going to go over is how that affects you, what changes and what doesn't have to change. So we'll start with our 12 to 23-month-olds. This does not change at all. We still have unflavored whole milk as the milk type for this age group. We're going to start to see the change as we go into 2 to 5-year-olds. What we see now is they can have unflavored whole, reduced fat, low fat, or fat-free milk. So on top of your typical low fat and fat-free, you now can add whole and reduced fat to that. This does not mean you have to start serving these milks. This just means you have some flexibility that if you wanted to, you could serve these milks. And then we'll see that transition continue into our 6 to 12-year-olds and adults, and they can have unflavored or flavored whole, reduced fat, low fat, or fat-free milk. And then we're going to talk about milk substitutes. So milk substitutes that are nutritionally equivalent to cow's milk require a parent statement. And milk substitutes that are not nutritionally equivalent to cow's milk require a signed medical statement. So we're going to take a look at kind of a chart that breaks down the most common things that we see. So the creditable milk that does not require any kind of statement, it's just creditable on the CACFP, is going to be your whole cow's milk, reduced fat cow's milk, low fat cow's milk, and fat-free cow's milk. And then we're going to move on to creditable milk, which these are milks that are nutritionally equivalent to cow's milk, but they need a parent statement. So that's going to be your low fat and fat-free lactose milk, lactose-free milk, low fat and fat-free buttermilk, low fat and fat-free acidified milk, and soy milk. And then our last category is non-creditable milk. So this is the most common milk types that we see that are not nutritionally equivalent to cow's milk. And that's going to be a lot of your nut milk. So your almond, cashew, coconut milk, hemp, rice, oat milk, and milk supplements. Now let's explore a critical part of the CACFP, purchasing milk for centers. So what happens if you're short on milk? There's a misconception that it's about the cost of each gallon you're missing, but instead it's actually the number of meals that the missing gallons could have served that affects your reimbursement. For example, consider that 1 gallon of milk equals 16 cups. With these 16 cups, you can serve 32 breakfasts to 1 to 2-year-olds. If you're short 7 gallons, that is a significant loss. So if we take a look at it, 16 cups of milk serves that 32 1 to 2-year-olds, and 32 breakfast at a free rate, because again, we want to see maximum impact, is $78. So that's $78 per gallon. So if you're short 7 gallons, that's $551 that you are losing out of your reimbursement because you were 7 gallons short on milk. So how do we make sure that doesn't happen? We do a milk audit. So this is why it is so important to have your menus and attendance in daily or weekly, because the more up to date that is, the more often you can check this and make sure you have what you need. So we check our milk audit by logging into KidCare, and then we're going to go to claims on the left toolbar, go to that milk audit button, and we want to double check and make sure we're on the correct month. And then we're going to view required gallons, and it's going to tell you exactly how much milk you should have based on your menus and attendance. So again, if your menu and attendance is not up to date, this is not going to be accurate. That has to be in and up to date for this to formulate correctly. And so you'll know exactly what you need. So you can kind of get a view of, okay, I need to buy more milk, or I'm overbuying milk, and kind of review that and make sure you're always on top of having enough milk. And now we'll talk about grains. So make sure that we're serving at least 1 whole grain per day. Remember that grain-based desserts are not creditable. So those yummy cereal bars, granola bars, and Pop-Tarts cannot be claimed. You're more than welcome to serve them as extra or give out as little extra treats, but they cannot be part of a claimable meal as a component. Remember that breakfast cereals, must contain no more than 6 grams of added sugars per dry ounce, and all grains served should be whole grain or enriched. So, how do you know if something's whole grain? So, we can look at how the food is labeled. We can do 100% whole wheat, or entire wheat. Now, you do want to look out and be mindful with packaging. It can be a little misleading sometimes. You'll see things that say made with whole grain, and you think, oh, whole grain. That doesn't always mean it's actually a whole grain item. Most of the time, that is marketing and packaging just to try to get you to buy something. So just if you see something that says made with whole grain, make sure you're also reading that ingredients list and confirming it is actually a whole grain creditable item. You can also use the Kentucky State WIC list. You'll be able to find those whole grains on there. Or you can use the rule of 3. So you're going to look at the ingredients, and the first ingredient must be whole grain. The next 2 ingredients, grain ingredients, must be whole grains, enriched grains, bran, or germ. And now we'll talk about sugar limits in the CACFP. So the sugar limits were updated in October of 2025. So breakfast cereals can have no more than 6 grams of added sugar per dry ounce. And yogurts need to stay below 12 grams of added sugar per 6 ounce. So no more than 12 grams of added sugar per 6 ounces. And just know that on our educator portal, we have a phenomenal tool that will tell you exactly whether a cereal or yogurt is creditable. You can use what you're currently using and look at that nutrition label. You can get on the internet and search different types of cereals and yogurt so you can plan ahead and say, is this creditable or not? You just need that nutrition facts label. You'll plug a couple of numbers in, and the calculator will tell you creditable or not creditable. It truly is such a helpful tool that is available to you on the educator portal. Now we'll talk about recipes in the CACP. So all homemade combination foods must have a creditable CACFP recipe on file. Excuse me. A homemade combination food is any dish prepared on site that includes 2 or more meal components served together as one item. For example, you'll see macaroni and cheese. That's probably the most common one. You have your grain for your pasta and your cheese for your meat alternate. The reason a recipe is required is because we need to know in each serving of that macaroni and cheese how much pasta are these children getting, and how much grain are they getting, and how much meat alternate are they getting. We need to make sure that they're getting enough to meet both components and serving size requirements. And then also things like chicken Alfredo. You have your pasta and your chicken. Taco salad, you have your meat alternate, your vegetable, your grain. So there are many different things that could require a recipe. And again, we have seasonal menus that if we have recipes on there, it has everything you need to be successful and stay in compliance with that as well on our educator portal. And to kind of go along with that a little bit, it's combination foods. So recipes are for homemade combination foods, and child nutrition labels are for prepackaged combination foods. So we'll see these a lot. They'll come on food truck boxes. So if you're ordering from a food truck, you're going to see these on boxes if there is one for that product. You're not going to see these if you're shopping in store at places. But we'll go over what to do if that's the case as well. But this does the same thing. Just like a recipe tells you how much of each component is in a serving, the child nutrition label is going to tell you how much of each thing is creditable in that serving. How does it count towards the meal pattern? And so we see these a lot with chicken nuggets. So chicken nuggets has your grain, your breading, and your meat, your chicken. Pizza, you have your crust for your grain and your cheese or pepperoni for your meat or meat alternate. So we need to know how much we need to serve to meet those components for each age group. And so a CN label tells us exactly that. And it's also required for any food item that's not 100% single ingredient item. So your deli meat. It's not just turkey. It's turkey, broth, cornstarch, and there's a lot of other ingredients in there if you read the label. Cheese sauce. It's not just cheese, it's milk, it's flour. So we need to know exactly how much to serve to meet that component. And then if a CN label is not available, you must have a product formulation statement. And this comes into play a lot more with the in-store items. You would reach out to the manufacturer and they may or may not provide you with one, but you have to have, if you're serving these foods, you either have to have a product formulation statement or a CN label. The great thing is, if you need one, you can go to our educator portal and we have a very extensive CN label library on there. So you'll have access to everything that we have. This allows you to find one, so you can search pizza, or you can search chicken nuggets, or you can search by brand, and it's going to tell you exactly if it's creditable or not. And if it is creditable, it's going to tell you exactly how much you need to serve to each age group. And then it also allows you to print, like download and print any of those CN labels or product formulation statements. And then a last case though, if it's not on there, please reach out to your field representative or your case manager, and they will be more than happy to assist you with that. And then lastly, we are so thrilled to announce that our Child Care and Development Conference is coming back. This is our first one since COVID. So we are just so excited to invite you all to be a part of that. This conference is going to be for more than just CACFP educators. Anyone who is an educator can attend this conference. There's something there for them. We are going to have sessions about the CACFP. We're going to have sessions on administration and licensing. We're going to have sessions on in the classroom, so lesson planning, behavior management. We're going to have early literacy. There is something there for everyone. And right now, we are so excited to just invite you to that. It's going to be August 21st through 22nd at the Gaylord Opryland Hotel. And so you can make it a little family vacation. But we would love to see you there. Please scan that QR code and you will get all the information that you need to be able to come and join us at the Gaylord Opryland Hotel. But I thank you for joining me today. And after you watch this, there will be reflection questions you need to answer. So please make sure you answer those, and that will generate you a certificate. But I hope everyone truly has a wonderful day, and thank you again.